What's happening, folks? Brand here. So I am very active in the Florida real estate market. I have 7 deals going on just here in the month of June. So I want to give you a realistic update as to what to expect if you're thinking about moving here to Florida, thinking about selling in the state of Florida. Well, let's just start by addressing all the headlines. So if you look up Florida real estate, you're going to see negative headlines everywhere. You're going to think Florida's on fire. You're going to think this is 2008 all over again. I want to put those headlines into perspective before we even start talking about what's actually going on here in the Florida market. So let me explain this. Normal headlines do not generate ad revenue. All right, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I have a YouTube channel with almost 300,000, so it did actually hit 300,000 subscribers today. And if I put up a very basic normal headline, which I do sometimes, it generates a quarter of the revenue that if you were to put out a really engagement driven headline. And so all of these media companies, YouTube channels, news stations that put out these outrageous headlines about the state of Florida, the reason they're doing that is because those headlines generate a lot of revenue. They're doing this for the money, not to give you a realistic update on what's actually going on here in the state of Florida. If you look back over the last 4 years, the same YouTube channels, same media companies, same news sites, they have all said the same thing for the last 4 years. 4 years ago, they were putting out headlines saying the market's crashing, Florida's on fire, and now 4 years later they're still doing that. So I don't want you to get scared off just because you see a headline saying everybody's leaving the state of Florida. In fact, it's the exact opposite. If you look here, according to Redfin, Florida is still the #1 state in the entire country that people are actually moving into. So Florida is still a very desired place to live, but it's, like I always say in my videos, it's not without its problems, which we're going to discuss some of those in this video as well. So let's talk about, is the housing market changing? Well, yeah, the housing market is absolutely changing. You're always going to have your normal buy side, sell side, supply and demand ebbs and flows. And we're seeing that right now here in Florida. We're seeing it really changed more towards a buyer's market. So the market is favoring you as a buyer a lot more than it has over the last 4 years. And you can see from the stats that homes are sitting on the market a lot longer. There is a lot more inventory in certain areas here in Florida. And so if you're seeing that in your specific area, then just know that that favors you as a buyer. But also know that market changes are geographically specific. So just because it's happening in one area of Florida doesn't necessarily mean it's happening in another area of Florida. So I encourage you to do your research on the specific area that you're considering buying or selling in, because that's going to give you the most relevant information. According to Redfin, homes sold here in the state of Florida are down 14%. So we've got a lot less buyers and a lot more inventory. You know, look back at 2022, 23, homes were sitting on the market for like 3 or 4 days. They would get swiped up by a buyer. Homes were in such high demand. Well, that's not really the case anymore. So when that happens, like take my area, I'm here in Pensacola. I work along the Panhandle, Perdido Key, all the way. I've done deals in Panama City, so I work this entire stretch. This area, we are seeing quite a bit more inventory, and the sellers that are having to sell, they're slashing their prices. I will say this, most of the deals that I'm doing right now are cash deals. So if you do have cash, I actually think this is a good time for a cash buyer to jump in and get a good deal. Because obviously right now interest rates are still, upwards to close to 7%. I feel like that's one of the reasons there's a lot of people paying cash right now. So if you do have cash, you do have a lot of leverage. Most of my cash buyers right now are getting really, really good deals. I just had one the other day where the seller came off his price almost $400,000. That's a lot. All right, so man, it's crazy. It was I just, right when I got out of my car, it was raining and I saw a lightning strike, and now it's beautiful out here. That is Florida for you, folks. 1 minute it's sunny, next minute it's storming. So if you are a buyer right now, the ball's kind of in your court. And here's why I like this market. This market's allowing you to take your time as a buyer, allowing you to pick out the house that is right for you and then make an offer that is right for you. And that's what I tell all my buyers. I'm like, let's make an offer that's comfortable for you. We don't have to, just because there's a sticker price on a house, you don't have to pay that price. A lot of people will see a home on Zillow, and I gotta say, there's a lot of stubborn sellers in this current market. They still think it's 2022, and it's not. And so these sellers that are pricing their homes too high, well, it's causing average days on market to go sky high because the buyers are actually smart. And I will say a lot of these agents, these buyers agents are smart now, and they're telling their buyers, whoa, we're not paying that price. Median price point here in Florida is still only down 2%. So I would hardly call that a crash. However, it is changing, and it's going to continue to change. And I think the next year or two looks pretty good if you are a buyer. If you're a seller, you need to have realistic expectations. Like I was just saying, you know, this isn't 2022. You're competing with a ton of other sellers. And so when you're competing, when you have more competition out there, you either need to make your house stand out. And there's a lot of things, and I've talked about it in other videos, that you can do to make your house stand out. Or you need to be competitive with your price, because buyers aren't really going for it anymore. And rightfully so. If I'm a buyer right now, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get the house I want at the price I want. And this is a good time for you to do that because, like I said, you do have more leverage. And so just because a market is changing and just because we're moving into more of a buyer's market, we're seeing more inventory, that doesn't necessarily mean that the state of Florida is on fire and that the market's crashing and that everybody's leaving Florida. That's just not the case. Okay, so don't pay attention to those headlines. Do your own research. It's very easy to do your own market research. One simple Google search shows that average days on market is up 11%, and that should tell me immediately that okay, sellers are probably going to have to start slashing their prices if they're going to want to sell. Now, there are still some sellers that don't have to sell, that they just are putting their house on the market to see if they can still get ridiculous prices for. And unfortunately, some of them do, which is key, which is one reason that sellers are continuing to do that. But we're seeing it less and less. And for the most part, sellers that are stubborn, that are putting a ridiculous price tag on their house, are finding out buyers just aren't having it right now. And so that's what we're seeing a lot of in this market. And so when I go in, like right now, every deal that I have going that's under contract is a buyer. So I'm primarily a buyer's agent. I do have some listings, but I try to have a realistic conversation with the seller prior to listing, and this is what the market's doing and this is what you need to expect. And so I can't stand when an agent comes in there and a seller's like, this is what I want to sell my house for, and the agent's like, okay, and they just say it because they agree to it because they want a listing, and it's $150,000, $200,000 overpriced. We are seeing a lot of that too, which is what's jacking this average days on market up. And if you look at the real estate market as a whole, over the whole country right here, according to Redfin, there's 500,000 more sellers than buyers right now in the market. And again, does this mean that the real estate market's on fire? No. Does this mean this? It's actually good. Like, you want changes in the real estate market, folks. Like, it's just like the stock market. Everybody, like, what was it, a couple months ago, everybody freaked out and pulled their money out of the market. The market, I guess you could say tanked, but guess what? It's right back up. It's like everybody freaks out. And really all that does when a market goes up or down is it gives the news something to talk about. You never want to panic. It's actually a good thing what's happening. And anytime there's a lot of fear out there, which there's a lot of fear because that's what the media is good at. The media is outstanding at promoting fear. And because there's so much fear out there right now, there's going to be opportunity. All right, you have to think of that. When everybody thinks that the world's on fire and that the market's crashing and blah, 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 well, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. I'm also seeing a ton of real estate agents that are crying the blues right now. Oh, we can't get leads. We can't sell our listings. And you know why that is? A ton of real estate agents entered the market in 2020, 21, 22. It was very easy to sell houses. And so they got used to not really having to do nothing to generate leads, not really having to do anything to sell their listings. And so there was no creative marketing. Fast forward to now, the agents that are winning are the agents that are like, okay, a lot of these agents are crying the blues because it's not 2022 anymore. And so I'm going to turn up my marketing. I'm going to get creative with my marketing. I'm not going to let this fear take over, and I'm not going to give in to it. those agents are actually winning right now. And so this is one of the better years I've ever had in real estate. You know, I had a goal in 2025. When I started the year, I had a goal of saying, you know what, I know I'm seeing all these negative headlines. I know they're going to continue. I know there's a lot of fear. I'm just going to ignore it. I turned off the news. I don't watch YouTube. I don't watch anything. And I'm just going to, do me. I'm just going to do me. Everything else will take care of itself. And that's all I've done. In 2025, I've tried to put out more marketing. I've tried to be more creative with my marketing. And I've had the best year. Well, I say it's going to end up being the best real estate year that I've ever had. Not to get off topic, but I feel like if people would stop worrying about everything else around them and focus on them, focus on what they have to do, this world would be such a more peaceful place. Because we worry so much about everybody else and what everybody else is doing and what the government's doing and what and what this group is saying and what this group is thinking and what they're doing. And we spend so much emotional energy worrying about everybody else. If you would just focus on what you got to do, I think you'd be a whole lot more successful. So folks, I hope you enjoy that quick update. I don't post a lot on this channel, but I do like to give an update every now and then. I'm mainly posting on my big channel. Like I said, I do have the Florida outdoor fishing channel. I have 300,000 subscribers. I travel all over the state of Florida, showcasing the state in a positive light. And so if you have any interest in just seeing the state of Florida and different beaches and places like that, then go check my channel out. I'll link it below. Other than that, folks, if you have any real estate questions, hit me up. All my information is linked below. Folks, we will catch you next time.